right. First of all, thank you that it's still so crowded in here. This is the last panel of the day, but it's going to be a very good one. We have a very strong lineup of enterprise-grade validators here. Let me introduce them one by one. So we have P2P here, Artemiy, who is their head of staking platform. Then from Allnodes, we have the COO, Michael, on the panel. Then one of the lead sponsors of the event, also very strong supporter here, making this all happen. A41, we have the founder, John, over there. Thank you for being here. And last but not least, we have Matthew from Validation Cloud on the panel. And to kick things off, let me really quickly give you like a super quick intro of the topic of today's panel. So yeah, I'm just gonna read this because my head is absolutely destroyed at this point. So as staking matures and becomes increasingly accessible, it's often perceived as a commodity service. With validators facing intensifying competition, pressure grows to offer staking at lower cost, potentially threatening profit margins and making it harder for validators to differentiate. So maybe to kick things off really quickly, how would you define or how would you explain commoditization in staking? What does it mean to you? And are you seeing it on the general staking market already happening? Maybe, John, you can kick things off here because you're nodding, so I'm just choosing you now.
I mean, to make things clear, I got invited like 20 minutes ago, so not prepared at all. But I think every like one of us who on the stage will probably agree that we are definitely seeing commoditization, but the way that we're approaching and responding to that commoditization will be like different from every player to player. From our perspective, yes, we are seeing commoditization for sure, but at the same time, I think you need to like differentiate between the two, like differentiate the clientele into two groups. One is probably the financial investors that are just looking for like the difference in bips and like selecting the operator out of the bips. What I mean by that is, let's say I'm a financial investor that has like $500 million worth of ETH that I can stake. I'll probably stake it through like 4 to 5 like operators, and then I'll be choosing out of like P2P, us, and like multiple other players like Killen and all the other like so-called tier 1, tier 0 validators. And in the meantime, when I'm balancing out between those 4 or 5, I think the weight of the proportion will probably go to the largest will go to the players that has the lowest commission fee. That is probably the one clientele group that is accelerating the commoditization of staking. Another clientele would be clients with different needs. I mean, then here, like if you're a validator that applies for these like clients, it may differ from validator to validator. For instance, like if you're like a founder of certain L1 that is staking with, let's say, P2P or A41, and then you're trying to, let's say, one of the priorities is to break into European market, for example. Then, like, the founder would probably want Artemiy's help, and he would probably like stake with P2P more or weight it more to the P2P side. When those type of decisions are being made, fees or let's say the bips, like 10 bips, like 5 bips, wouldn't really make a difference in terms of like who you choose for staking. It's more about what's the benefit that I would get as an investor or I would get as someone who's staking there is more important. So that category wouldn't apply or wouldn't accelerate the commoditization of staking. So I would say like TLDR, like, yes, definitely we're seeing it, but like, it depends on like who the stakers are. The nature of the stakers are so different and various, but like I can categorize into two, and the former actually applies and they go for commoditization. The latter actually doesn't apply, and they are not accelerating the commoditization at all.
Does anybody want to add to that before we go to the next question?
Yeah, sure. I think it's important. I agree with John that the target audience matters, so it depends. But I think it's interesting to everybody talk about institutional investors, the biggest ones. And among them, I think the commoditization is distinguished more heavily. So it's more price wars there. It's hard. What does the commoditization means to me is just hard to create unique selling propositions outside of fee wars. And if you create some value proposition, it's easily replicated by competitors, and you end up competing on a fee size once again. So yeah, it exists. And it's okay. It happens with markets. But the market overall is growing, so I think it's not a big deal actually.
But I mean, you mentioned there are different tiers in staking, right? In staking operators. But with like USPs being hard to differentiate, and also new competition entering the space, and profit margins not being like a real differentiator anymore, and them even shrinking, how are you guys going to differentiate? Like, if everything becomes the same, and like, do I even need to choose like a tier 1 in the future, or can like a tier 2? Do tiers even exist? Like, where do you see this space going? Just to add to the conversation here, maybe, yeah.
Okay, I think commoditization happens mostly on the retail side. From our experience, we are very heavily retail oriented. We do have some institutional clients, but most of our TVL, 80% of it, it consists of, which is like 4.5 billion at this moment. It consists of retail clients, little, you know, here and there, half of each there. So in my experience, the institutionals really don't care that much about few percentage point of extra yields. In fact, they just tell us, we don't care. We need certain protocols to be met, for example, SOC 2 and stuff like that, and that's why they will go with you and not. And that's why one of the reasons why we are mostly retail oriented, because we don't have all these fancy, you know, what do you call them, like SOC 2 and stuff like that. So I believe that the differentiating factor, to answering your question, is for us is customer support. It's might be very, you know, obvious, but that's how we amassed for 4.5 billion. We are obsessed with customer support. Another factor is ease of use, but nowadays everyone is offering fancy dashboards, everyone has bells and whistles, so that might not be even the most competitive factor. Differentiate, how can I differentiate is to be lean as a team. Like we handle close to 50,000 nodes across 100 protocols that we support, but our team is only 8 people. So that's allows us to be more competitive on pricing, and our pricing haven't changed since the day one. And in fact, we never charge any commissions. We give back all the rewards back to the users. We charge $5 per node. That's where we start, and that's it. So these are the 3 major differentiating factors that in staking that we can offer. Because right now, everything is pretty much the same with everyone. There's no difference. Enterprise-grade staking solution is just means that you have certain rules set in your business that pretty much allow you to work with institutional clients. It doesn't mean that you're better or worse. It's just paperwork, pretty much.
Okay, but then, like, we also have a lot of, there was some very great insights on the retail side, but we also have a lot of validators in the crowd, and generally also they are targeting institutions. If it's all the same, how do you then foster these strong and close relationship with institutional clients and win them over to work with you, or with like 3 chosen, like to include you in their chosen validator set and not somebody else? Maybe Matthew, you have something to add here.
Yeah, with an institutional client base, there's kind of a handful of checkboxes you need to just get into the door. A SOC 2 compliance, if it's a US-based institution, specifically like a centralized exchange. So those are outside of the core staking capabilities, just value-add services and insurances that you need to have in order to work with that type of client base. But outside of that, as institutional investors look to start staking within more sophisticated products like funds, things like reporting come into play, and being able to work with a fund admin. So these are, migrating from like a retail-focused client base, we're starting to get, a more sophisticated investor who's looking at the space who, not as fee sensitive, but you need to be able to check all the other boxes because they want to go for staking. There's a lot of options. It's a small portion of a specific product. They need to go with the user who's going to give them the path to least resistance and allow them to focus on distributing the product, managing the portfolio. So there's a handful of different levers that you could focus on to give them the best client experience.
Yeah, maybe Artemiy or John, you both are very big on the institutional side as well. Do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I want to address Mike's statement regarding that all the commoditization happens on the retail side. I think it's like people tend to think that their market is kind of more competitive because I'm pretty sure, I'm not underestimating neither like retail nor institutional market, but these big financial guys, they are very tough. So when they get like 5, 10 offers,
Really care about
they care about every percentage point and stuff. Yeah. So but generally, how to stand out? Of course, I also will agree with Mike on the customer support, but with the bigger clients, it's more like, I would say, customer service, because we have dedicated people assigned to big clients, and when the market commoditizes, it's obvious that client relationships comes on the first place. If everybody offers pretty much same service, same product, so the people matter more in this case. So that's the first point. Second point, what we try to do is we try to offer some edges in technologies around staking. For example, we are the biggest validator in SSV network. SSV is providing some nice incentives to clients. That matters. Also, we were very early on restaking. We are right now the biggest restaking operator. It also creates some kind of unique offer, at least for a limited period of time, but it opens some doors to start negotiations and in the end to stake with us and restake with us. That's the first. The second point. And the third, I say, kind of underestimated the insurance because slashing insurance for these big financial players, some kind of safety matters, and security matters, and we are one of the very few staking providers which partners with the real world insurance company with real world US license, and it brings more security and also ticks yet another checkbox in this institutional validation offer.
Can I add one thing?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I want to pay homage to Staking Rewards. That's why you guys exist, huh? Right? You guys rate us, and then institutions and retails, they look at the ranks and they look at the ratings, and then they try to find a differentiator between all the security and all the measures that we have checked boxes in a sense. And then after that, as both Matthew and Artemiy mentioned, that there are other check boxes, and for institutions or even big whales, they want to see all these conditions to be met. And after that, I think, when you talk about tier 0, tier 1 validators, we all probably check boxes anyways. So from there, how do we differentiate is the problem. I think if I were to have $500 million worth of ETH, and I'm choosing like tier 1 validators, it would look to me like whether I'm buying Hermes Birkin or Kelly, or like, go to LVMH and like, look for other bags. Like, pretty much the value that the tier 1 validators give to me as an investor would be pretty much the same, but out of that, it would be definitely become then the brand game. Like, would you go with P2P? Would you go with A41? Like, do we have any weight, or do we have any focus on the Asia Pacific market, or do we have specific focus on the European market, or do we like Artemiy, or do we like John? Like, those type of things actually start to come into the play. So I would say there are definitely differentiators, because it's at the end of the day, like, it's all about like when we're talking about the institutions, it's a B2B sales, and for B2B sales, it involves a lot of the human elements. And for the human elements, then like you need to think about your BD team's composition. Like, whether do you have a superpower like super BD? Like, like what I mean by that is, do you have a BD that can actually buy and steal hearts from the institution, the clients that you're facing? Because essentially our businesses, when it comes down to, like, when we reach the economy of scale, and then after that, it becomes like private banking in a way. Like, what kind of demands can we actually meet from our institutional clients? If you could, fee doesn't matter. If you can't, fee does matter, because you need to beat others through fees.
Yeah, but like, let's say you have like a big institutional client. There are 10 tier 1 validators they are choosing from. And they are all very much the same. What bargaining power do these 10 validators have in front of the institutional client on the fee? Doesn't the institutional client, go ahead.
I wanted to add, major factor is networking. You have to wine and dine, and it takes forever, half a year, up to a year, maybe even 2 years, until they actually become your client. You actually have to develop good human relationship with the key, key decision makers at that particular institution. But I wanted to mention that it's very important. All of us here started a few years ago in this business. And now, whatever we discuss here, whatever checkboxes we mark, that's for those that starting, or maybe somewhere beginning, or maybe in the middle of growing. That's going to be super hard right now, because commoditization is happening. Network, you need to develop that networks, and all that together creates a big problem to grow your business. That's in my opinion.
Okay, yeah. 2 points: wine and dine. They are like the after party. A shout out to A41, who are sponsoring the after party today, where we can wine and dine and foster these relationships. And then second, maybe lastly, some words of advice that you can give out to the audience and to the people who are listening on the live stream, and everyone. How they can differentiate some last wisdom you want to share in front of a very staking-focused audience, starting with you, Matthew.
Yeah, I think it's important to define. I think everyone's talked about there's these different customer segments that are emerging. Find a segment that you think you could have a competitive advantage on, and whether you're a smaller player, newer entrant, you might not have that street credibility yet, but you can earn that by reverse engineering. What does that client need? Do they need help being connected to capital? Do they need specific, like I mentioned before, reporting requirements? Do they want to test out a new pricing model? I think there's newer things emerging to the market, like the CoinDesk Caesar rate. You're going to see Ethereum pricing might shift from a commission-based model to, okay, you say you're highly performant, can you beat this index price? And you can keep the alpha there. So the space is going to evolve, and it's going to make all of us adapt and have to add on value services. I mean, I came from the custody market. People have been saying that's a commodity for years now, and custody itself might have been, but Zodia just raised $50 million, and custodians are launching L2s. Like, everyone's evolving, trying to add value-add services to what their core business is. And there's plenty of opportunities out there for staking providers to, you know, if someone's going to stake with 4 different providers, they might choose, you know, 4 with SOC 2 compliance, a certain amount of assets, but one has capital connections, you know, one has, and everyone's going to optimize for something different. So there's going to be a place for you within their portfolio.
Okay, then 1 sentence each. We are in overtime already, so quick, guys.
Okay, two sentences. First of all, I think first one, like I think like secure and robust infrastructure. This trend will never end. That's like a must-have. So that's, and the second point, I think the focus on new networks. Do a nice research and try to grab market share, not in the existing markets, but try to identify the next big networks, the next big thing, and to grow presence there, to invest into like grabbing market share in this new network.
Okay, so a few things. Be customer-oriented. If you're small and you're just starting, do not try to lower the fees and race to the bottom. It's never gonna you know, help you at the end. Customer-oriented and be creative, meaning that try to pick up every single thing that is upcoming and new and interesting. Try to implement it in your product.
2 sentences is pretty hard.
Only 1.
Yeah, I mean, even 1 is hard. Understand where you are in the market, basically. Like, what I mean by that is understand who you are, what you're good at, and leverage, like, whether you can actually leverage what you're good at to the clients. And, like, if you can't craft your own lethal weapon as a new validator or a growing validator, I think you can actually compete with, like, any others if you could leverage that in the region that you can, or region or like, you know, or zone or whatever you want to call, like, and then you can compete.
Awesome. Then thank you very much, everyone, for this amazing panel. Thank you for being here. And maybe as a last word, one thing they all have in common: they are all verified staking providers at stakingrewards.com. But yeah, so this is like the last panel for today. And I hope I will see you all at the after party, sponsored by A41. Thank you very much.